In the serene and secluded convent of Santa Maria, a place where the presence of men was strictly forbidden, an unsettling mystery began to unfold. One by one, the nuns found themselves pregnant, casting a shadow of panic over the Mother Superior. Determined to uncover the truth, she installed a hidden camera, only to discover a revelation that would shake the very foundations of her sacred sanctuary. Mother Judith, the steadfast and unwavering leader of the convent, was deeply engrossed in her prayers and the myriad tasks that came with overseeing the daily operations of the convent. Her office was a sanctuary of order and devotion, where she meticulously planned the routines and regulations that governed the lives of the sisters under her care. As she reviewed the day's obligations, a soft knock at the door interrupted her concentration. She sighed, momentarily annoyed by the disturbance, but quickly composed herself, murmuring, "Enter." The door creaked open to reveal Sister Claire, her trusted confidant and right hand. Claire, usually composed and discreet, appeared visibly troubled. Judith sensed the urgency in her demeanor and immediately set aside her papers. "What is it, Sister Claire?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with concern. Claire, her voice trembling, stepped forward without preamble. "Mother, the novice Camilla is unwell. She has been vomiting incessantly in the bathroom." Judith's eyes widened in alarm, and she rose swiftly from her chair. "Take me to her at once," she commanded. The two nuns hurried through the silent corridors of the convent, their footsteps echoing softly against the stone walls. When they reached the bathroom, they found Camilla, pale and visibly exhausted, kneeling before the toilet. Judith approached the young novice with a mixture of concern and authority. "My child, what is wrong?" she asked, her voice gentle yet firm. Camilla, her lips trembling, wiped her mouth with a tired gesture. "I don't know, Mother," she whispered, her voice weak. "For several days now, I've felt nauseous and dizzy." She lowered her eyes, almost ashamed. "I didn't want to trouble you. I thought it would pass." Judith frowned, her brow furrowing with worry. "You should have come to me sooner, Camilla. Your health is paramount." She turned to Claire, who stood quietly nearby. "Go to my office and fetch the keys to the car. We'll take her to the hospital." Claire nodded and hurried off, while Judith helped Camilla to her feet. As she did so, she noticed something strange. Camilla's habit was not fully closed, and a prominent bulge protruded from her tunic. Judith's heart quickened as she stared at the young novice, her mind racing. "Camilla," she began, her voice betraying a hint of unease she tried to suppress, "have you been eating well these past few days?" Camilla shook her head, her face pale and drawn. "No, Mother. I've barely been able to eat. The nausea is too much." An impossible thought crossed Judith's mind, but she dismissed it immediately. Camilla, pregnant? It was unthinkable. In the convent of Santa Maria, where no man was permitted to enter, such a situation defied all logic. Judith, who knew every novice by heart, was certain that Camilla had not left the convent since her arrival several months prior. And yet, the evidence before her eyes was undeniable. As they drove to the hospital, Judith's mind was a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. She kept her eyes fixed on the road, but her thoughts were consumed by the young novice sitting beside her. The symptoms were there, but the circumstances made the situation impossible to comprehend. At the hospital, Judith quickly explained Camilla's symptoms to the receptionist, who seemed equally puzzled. They were promptly directed to Dr. Paula, a general practitioner and obstetrician. Dr. Paula listened attentively to Judith's account and then turned to Camilla with a series of pointed questions. "How long have you been experiencing these symptoms? Have you been eating well? Have you ever felt like this before?" Camilla answered each question with a quiet, trembling voice, while Judith observed every word and gesture, a growing sense of unease settling in her stomach. Finally, Dr. Paula asked, "May I examine your abdomen?" Judith nodded, giving her consent. Camilla removed her habit, and as the doctor's eyes fell upon the young novice's swollen belly, a flicker of understanding crossed her face, though the full truth remained to be uncovered. "Camilla," Dr. Paula began gently, "I'm sorry to ask this, but have you had any relations before entering the convent?" Camilla, visibly uncomfortable, shook her head. "No, never," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Judith interjected quickly, she has been at the convent for several months, doctor.
There has been no contact with men during that time.
Dr. Paula struggled to process this information but remained composed. She ordered a series of tests to confirm what already seemed evident.
A few minutes later, the results were in.
Mother, Sister Camilla, Dr. Paula announced, her tone serious, there is no doubt.
You are pregnant. A heavy silence filled the room.
Judith felt the ground shift beneath her feet.
This cannot be, she murmured, her voice breaking.
Camilla, her eyes filled with panic, stammered, it's not possible.
I can't be pregnant.
Dr. Paula, calm and firm, responded, the test is reliable, sister.
But to be absolutely certain, we will perform an ultrasound. Terrified by the situation, Judith nodded quickly.
Please, doctor, proceed with the ultrasound.
Camilla was taken to the examination room, where Dr. Paula confirmed what the initial tests had already suggested.
There is no doubt, mother, she said with grave certainty.
The novice is pregnant. The baby is already well formed.
Judith passed a trembling hand over her face, her mind reeling.
But this is impossible. There must be some mistake.
Dr. Paula, understanding the Mother Superior's struggle to accept the situation, reaffirmed, Mother, we have repeated the tests and the ultrasound confirms it.
There is no error.
Dr. Paula prescribed medication to alleviate Camilla's nausea and scheduled regular prenatal checkups. Judith thanked her, promising to return for follow-up appointments. As they left the hospital, the drive back to the convent was heavy with unspoken questions. Once the car was in motion, Judith could no longer contain her thoughts. Camilla, she began, her voice firm, you must tell me the truth.
Are you hiding something? How did this baby come to be?
The young novice, devastated, shook her head, her face marked by terror.
I swear, Mother, I don't know. I've never been with a man.
I have no idea how this happened. Judith fell silent, lost in her thoughts.
Was Camilla telling the truth? Could this be an immaculate conception, a new divine miracle? The idea was both fascinating and terrifying. How could this have happened under her watch? Was God testing her faith? After a long silence, Judith took a deep breath. As soon as we return to the convent, I will call your family, Camilla. They must know.
But Camilla, gripped by panic, seized Judith's arm and pleaded, please, Mother, don't tell them.
Don't tell them anything. I want to stay at the convent. I want to keep this a secret, at least for now.
Judith hesitated, but after a moment of reflection, she nodded.
You are of age. If this is your wish, I will respect it. And know that you will always be welcome here. I will not expel you, especially in this condition. Camilla managed a faint smile of relief and expressed her deep gratitude.
Judith, her thoughts still in turmoil, turned her gaze to the road, focusing on the journey back to the convent. A few minutes later, they arrived at Santa Maria.
Camilla seemed slightly better, thanks to the medication.
Upon their arrival, Claire rushed to meet them, her face etched with worry.
How is she, Mother?
What's happening? She asked anxiously.
Judith took a deep breath before responding. She is pregnant.
The shock was immediate. Claire stood frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief.
Pregnant? How is that possible?
Judith, now resolute, ordered, gather all the sisters in the courtyard.
I have an important announcement to make. Shortly after, all the nuns and novices assembled in the convent's large courtyard. Judith, accompanied by Camilla and Claire, addressed them.
Our prayers have been answered in a way we may not fully understand.
Sister Camilla is pregnant.
The sisters exchanged stunned glances, but Judith raised her hand to silence them.
This baby is a work of God.
Do not try to understand how it was conceived, she added with newfound serenity. We must accept this pregnancy as a divine sign and treat it with love and kindness.
Camilla wishes to keep this a secret, and I order you all not to speak of this to anyone.
The sisters acquiesced, but the air was thick with astonishment. The order had been given, but the mystery remained.
Later, in her office, Judith confided her doubts to Claire. "There's something in Camilla's eyes, something that doesn't sit right with me. I feel like she's hiding something." Claire, hesitant, asked, "Mother, do you think she's been with a man?" Judith sighed heavily. "I don't want to believe it, but perhaps. Even if it means she has broken her vows and committed the original sin. How could this have happened? No man sets foot in this convent." Claire offered a possible explanation, but Judith cut her off. "No matter what I think, for now, we must support her and wait for events to unfold. God will show us the way." Despite Judith's determination, a lingering doubt persisted in her mind. Was Camilla's pregnancy a miracle, or was there something more sinister at play? Days passed, and Judith, accompanied by Claire, observed Camilla closely, searching for any clue, any explanation for the origin of the pregnancy. Yet, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Camilla behaved as usual, with humility and diligence. The absence of answers fueled the idea that this might indeed be a divine miracle. Weeks after the discovery of Camilla's pregnancy, an unexpected event occurred. The novice entered the Mother Superior's office, accompanied by 2 other novices who had arrived at the convent around the same time as her. Judith and Claire were preparing lessons when the 3 young women arrived. "Camilla, what's happening? Is everything all right with the baby?" Judith asked, concerned, before Camilla could even respond. Claire added, "Is something wrong?" The novice shook her head. "No, my baby is fine. But I think my friends also need to be checked to ensure they are healthy." Judith's eyes widened in surprise. "What are you talking about, Camilla?" At that moment, the 2 novices beside Camilla opened their habits, revealing their protruding bellies. Judith brought a hand to her mouth, incredulous. Claire froze beside her. "You're both pregnant?" Judith asked, her voice trembling. The novices, visibly disturbed, began to explain. "We don't know how our bellies started to grow. There's no explanation." Shocked, Judith turned to Claire. "Call Dr. Paula. Now." Claire rushed to call the doctor. After the discovery of Camilla's pregnancy, Judith had managed to convince Dr. Paula to visit the convent exclusively to preserve the confidentiality of the situation. Respectful of the convent's way of life and deeply religious, Dr. Paula had agreed to help. When Dr. Paula arrived, she quickly examined the 2 novices, bringing with her some of her medical equipment. After conducting the examinations, she confirmed, they are both pregnant. Judith staggered under the weight of the news, nearly fainting. "But how is this possible?" Claire tried to reassure her, but the Mother Superior could not bring herself to accept the situation. Dr. Paula, without pressing further about the origin of the pregnancies, simply said, "I will be here to monitor them closely. It's imperative that we follow these pregnancies carefully." After thanking the doctor, Judith escorted her out. She then turned to the 3 novices, Claire at her side, and regarded them for a long moment before beginning her interrogation. "Have any of you had contact with a man? Yes or no? Tell me the truth, please." The 3 novices shook their heads, tears streaming down their faces. Judith, overwhelmed, had no choice but to accept the idea that what was happening might indeed be a miracle. But deep in her heart, doubt lingered. Later, while discussing the situation with Claire, Judith confessed, "I could believe that 1 novice becoming pregnant might be a divine miracle. But 3? This is surreal." Claire tried to comfort her. "Mother, we will find an explanation. God always guides us. Sooner or later, the truth will come to light." But before she could find any solace, Constance, one of the older nuns, appeared at the door, pale and trembling. "Mother, you need to see this right now." Judith and Claire followed her, concerned, to another part of the convent where a group of young novices had gathered. There, they found another novice, pale and nauseous, with a visibly swollen belly, revealing what Judith had feared most. "No, this can't be," Judith murmured, her heart heavy as she saw yet another pregnant novice. In the days that followed, Judith conducted a thorough inspection of all the women in the convent, and what she discovered surpassed all imagination.
Several novices were pregnant, with pregnancies ranging from 2 to 4 months. Each discovery left her more disoriented than the last.
Judith was tormented by the question. Should she reveal to the world what was happening at the convent of Santa Maria, or continue to keep it secret?
The weight of the decision consumed her. With Claire and Constance, who had been tasked with monitoring the pregnant novices, Judith discussed the situation. Claire, visibly worried, voiced her fears.
"Mother, I'm afraid. I never imagined becoming a mother. That's why I took vows of chastity. But now, I can't help but wonder if I'll be next."
Judith, saddened, replied, "I wish I could say that's impossible, Claire, but right now, anything seems possible." Dr. Paula, in charge of monitoring the pregnancies, was equally perplexed. Although she had tried to learn more from the pregnant novices, they all insisted it was a divine miracle.
However, during her last consultation with Camilla, a detail caught her attention.
"Mother Judith," Dr. Paula said, "the babies are healthy, and all the pregnant women seem to be in good health.
But something intrigues me. Camilla refused to undergo an internal examination. It's a bit unusual given the circumstances."
"I haven't mentioned it to the others yet, I wanted to inform you first." Judith frowned, her face marked by a worry she could not hide.
"Do you think she's hiding something?"
Dr. Paula hesitated, her eyes lost in thought for a moment.
"I don't know.
This situation makes me believe these pregnancies could be a true miracle.
But at the same time, there's no logical explanation other than traditional conception." Claire interjected thoughtfully, "I understand your suspicions, doctor, but even if that hypothesis were true, who exactly could have impregnated the novices? There are no men here." Dr. Paula pondered for a moment before asking the crucial question, "Are you absolutely certain no men enter the convent?"
Judith sighed deeply, her gaze somber. "There's only one man, Father Sullivan. He celebrates our masses, but he's 90 years old and always by my side.
I refuse to believe he has anything to do with this. He's as terrified as we are."
Claire, her eyes narrowed in sudden thought, suggested, "Mother, the novices come from the outside world before joining us.
They could be hiding something.
We do our best to monitor them, but it's impossible to be everywhere at once.
What if something happened without our knowledge?"
Judith reflected, her face marked by the gravity of the situation. Claire insisted, "Perhaps we should install hidden cameras in the convent.
If something is happening, we'll be able to capture it on film.
And if no compromising images appear, we'll know for certain it's a divine miracle, and we'll all kneel before him, begging forgiveness for our doubts."
Dr. Paula, equally curious, agreed. "I can handle the cameras myself. We'll proceed discreetly."
That very afternoon, while Constance gathered all the nuns for an activity in the courtyard, Judith, Claire, and Dr. Paula installed hidden cameras in the hallways and common areas of the convent, ensuring no one would notice. For the first 2 days, Judith and Claire spent hours analyzing the footage but saw nothing out of the ordinary. They were on the verge of giving up, convinced everything was fine, when an unexpected detail caught Claire's attention. She rushed to Judith.
"Mother, look at this."
Judith approached, scrutinizing the screen. In the middle of the night, with the convent's lights off, a group of novices, including all the pregnant women and several new arrivals, were seen leaving their dormitory in silence and heading toward the sanctuary. They remained there for about 2 hours before returning to their rooms.
Judith froze, a wave of anguish washing over her.
She murmured almost to herself, "Something is happening in the sanctuary, and it's connected to these pregnancies." Claire, alarmed, suggested confronting the novices directly about what was happening in the sanctuary. But Judith shook her head, a glimmer of caution in her eyes.
"No, Claire. I've always felt these novices were hiding something.
If we confront them now, they might stop going to the sanctuary, and we'll never discover the truth."
Claire, intrigued, asked, "What will we do, Mother?"
Judith replied firmly, "We'll follow them tonight.
We'll find out what's really happening." When night fell, Judith and Claire prepared themselves, drinking coffee to stay awake. They settled in Judith's office, carefully monitoring the cameras.
As expected, the novices left their rooms in silence and headed toward the sanctuary.
After about 10 minutes, Judith whispered, "It's time. Let's go."
The two nuns moved discreetly toward the sanctuary, walking on tiptoe to avoid detection.
But when they arrived, they were surprised to find the sanctuary empty.
The candles burned, casting a soft light on the biblical images and paintings on the walls, but there was no trace of the novices. Judith murmured in disbelief, "This makes no sense.
They were here. We saw them on the cameras. We saw them enter." Claire, equally confused, began exploring.